life in general wasn't the greatest. And I just remember being like, all right, God, like, I know what it looks like to trust you, but I wave that flag, but my life doesn't represent that at all. A lot of cultures around the world, there's not a lot of say for women in the marriage and in the household, and it is kind of like that in our culture too. So growing up and seeing my dad talk to my mom a certain way, belittle her in certain aspects, it challenged me on a lot of things. I always knew, like, I need to do this so I don't position myself where my family's at, and I need to save. That was the biggest difference. And honestly, families don't really ever talk about finances, but I could see the burden it was, you know. It was just a constant habit that led to bankruptcy, you know, and seeing that in family is tough. You put that burden on everybody without telling it. An addict doesn't realize it's an issue until it blows up in their face. That's why I have that like insecurity or that struggle of like enjoying money, because like I saw people lose it and then spend too much of it and it becomes a burden that I struggle with. Like, okay, I can't enjoy this. I think that a lot of us struggle with that. And it wasn't until I became a Christian that I actually even set goals in life, you know, that I was like, man, I'm gonna do this. And without it making it sound like, oh, you can get anything and achieve everything. But it helped me realize, like, okay, if you put goals, realistic goals, and then you break those things down on how you'll get there, like.
Welcome to another episode of the CYR Podcast, where if you clean your room, you clean your life, or you change your life. It's a bunch of different acronyms for CYR. Today we got my guy. I've been knowing you over 10 years.
Yeah.
That's crazy, bro. We old.
I know.
Johnny Reyes,
Yep.
realtor, father, husband, all the above, and so much more. Tell us a little bit about you, bro.
Yeah. So I have been married for 13 years and have 3 kids. I've been doing real estate since 2017. Graduated originally as a PE teacher from good old Wayne State. And then, moved to Omaha in 2017 and have been enjoying life here and getting to help out friends, families, buy, sell, and invest in real estate. So it's been fun. So
we're gonna hop right into this, bro.
Okay.
Why is real estate so important?
Yeah, no, great question. I feel like from personally what I've seen, it's super important, and at least in the sense of like you have a piggy bank that you know you'll have something to look forward to in the future, right? As opposed to renting, where you're just kind of just throwing money every month and, you know, not getting any return. So it's a forced piggy bank, which I like, you know, because some people, I would say majority of the people aren't good with their money, you know. Other things too with real estate though too is just to keep in mind, like, I mean, most people don't have the funds to invest in real estate right away, and that's totally okay. You know, I try to educate my clients on like learning how to budget is the most important thing. So
I was just about to say, like, I think something that we see today as opposed to 20, 30 years back is like it's much harder for individuals and adults. You know, I feel like we're just grown kids, bro. Mm-hmm. I mean, I feel like an adult, but it's harder for us to like even be able to invest in real estate as a primary residence or even as like rental properties and things like that. Like, why is that? Why is it harder?
Yeah. Obviously one, the price of homes have gone up a lot and people's income hasn't gone up a lot, but people's debt has gone up just as much, you know, and some compared to the home pricing. I think the average person has like 30 to 40,000 in student loans, around 6,000 in credit card debt. Everybody usually typically has like a $500 to $700 monthly payment for cars, you know. It's like when you add that up, like if you've got student loans, you've got credit card debt, you've got a car payment, and the average income in the US is like 40 to 50, like half of your take home like goes to debt, you know? So I feel like it's so difficult for so many people because we've just been programmed into, hey, it's okay to take out all this debt. Like we haven't been educated with finances. And for me, after I graduated from Wayne, I took a Dave Ramsey course, and I tell people that is by far one of the things that have changed my life and my perspective on how I view money. Just because I was able to pay off my student loans in 2.5 years. And when I did that, the burden was like, I just felt like a different human being walking around, and it helped me, buy houses, buy rental properties, right? Because I positioned myself, but that meant, not going out to eat as much, not being able to travel as much, not being able to buy certain things, but that's okay, so.
Was that Dave Ramsey course the catalyst for you from switching from your major that you had, which was, you said, physical education?
Yeah, no. For PE jobs, once I graduated, they were all in small town Nebraska. And I student taught at a Class D school, and I love kids. I love coaching. I miss coaching certain sports, but I'm an atmosphere guy. Like, I want to have fun. Like, let's do this. And when you look at a school and you're like, man, some of these teachers aren't on that same mindset. You're like, man, if this is what I have to look forward to, I don't want to have to keep jumping around different jobs, So that, and I saw that in Class D schools. I would have been the football coach, wrestling coach, track coach, tons of hours, not a lot of money. So my thought was, if I literally put that amount of hours into anything else, I'll make more. So,
facts.
And it worked.
How did you get to real estate though?
Yeah. So in high school, we had a school to career day, and we went to Midland College, and I met 2 realtors there that were talking about real estate. So I was the only one there to ask, like, hey, can I do an internship with you guys? Built a connection there. My senior year at Wayne, I was like, man, I really don't know what I was going to do. I was either looking at youth ministry, PE, and I was like, well, I've always thought about wanting to do this. And my mentor told me, she's like, Johnny, as soon as you graduate high school and you go to college, get your real estate license. And I didn't listen, obviously. And now going back, I wish I would have. But I called her and I was like, hey, what does it look like? And she sat me down, laid it all out. Like, you take these courses, you take this test, and I'm a horrible test taker. So I want to give hope to people that are horrible.
He said it's possible.
Oh, bro. Oh, it's honestly, man, like, it took me, I don't know, 8 tries. If I'm I don't know, throwing out a number out there. I don't remember, but it was a lot, I'm surprised they let me come back and take one of those. But yeah, she laid it out for me, passed my test. Then shortly after I had my license, I switched to property management. Did property management for 2 years, learned a lot, just even in that realm, on how to look at properties, cash flow, just knowing that, again, even in having rentals, acknowledging like what you see in social media of like passive income, it's not passive. It's still another job, So if you're buying a rental and thinking like, oh, it's going to be not stressful at all, like, just keep in mind there will be hiccups because you're dealing with other people, right? And people aren't going to take care of something that you own as well as you would, So I feel like there's that misconception of like, oh, I can just set it and forget it. I think that just depends also on the asset that you're buying. If you're buying brand new construction and you're, again, literally just looking to park your money somewhere, but don't care about the income, it just pays the debt, I think that's a different approach. But I think it works for different people, Yeah. Tony, the guy on my team, he likes buying assets that cash flow better, but he's handier than I am, so he can go do those repairs. Where I don't text me, don't call me. Like, I don't, I'm not that guy, but I've come to find that out. I'm actually in the process of selling one of my rentals because it's that kind of a headache for me. It's, and I bought it because of FOMO, right? And that's what I'd love for people to understand is,
explain that real quick.
The fear of missing out, right? So like, again, the average homeowner in America is first time home buyer is 38 years old. So nobody's missing the boat, right? So this was back in 2021, rates were low. I had a buddy say, hey, can you sell this duplex for me? And so I felt like, I'm like, oh, I've got an in before it even goes on the market, right? It was updated on the inside. And so I liked that. Like, I didn't have to do anything, new electrical, new HVAC, new plumbing. It did need some outside work. And I was like, oh, I know I'll have to do that in the future. It's in a location that I don't ever really go to in town. It off-street parking, and it was built in 1890.
Ooh.
Yeah. But again, I was looking at the numbers, right? And nothing against my buddy, but he was at that time, and what he bought it for, it was cash flowing well. But something people don't tell you is what's gone up in the last few years: taxes and insurance. So that's where I want people to understand, like, I've had to, because I've budget my personal finances, I've had to put in money into this property, right, to keep it going. Because if I was just banking on the cash flow, I would have lost that thing, you know? Mm-hmm. So, but again, it's a learning lesson, right? Like I'm a firm believer in real estate because I bought my first property in 2017 for $167,000. It's now worth $315,000, $330,000, right? I love my financial advisor, but I tell him, like, hey, could you sell me a product that somebody else could be paying for? There's not, right? And you get the benefit with taxes, right? But again, it's everybody wants to invest differently, and I get that. You know, I've just seen the benefits in real estate, but I just know I don't want to position myself in certain headaches that I don't really need. You know, because at the end of the day, like, if you're enjoying what you're doing and seeing the investments grow and growing in a way that it helps you and your family, and it's not that burden, it'll be okay. You know, sometimes I feel like we force ourselves to make something work. And I felt like I was doing that because of that FOMO, like, oh man, I have this opportunity, I don't want to miss out. And as I've gotten older, my old boss would always say, the deal of the lifetime comes by once a week. And what I feel like that means to me is when you're actually acknowledging something and you're looking for something, more of those opportunities come up than you think, you know? So don't be afraid of, you know, missing the boat, you know, just prepare yourself right so you can sleep good at night when that furnace goes out, when you have to replace carpet, paint it, and you can't do it.
That's,
you know?
good. That's good. I think a lot of what we see when it comes to just like, you know, acquiring real estate is like you said, like you get in and it just automatically cash flows and all of that good stuff, right? Because that's a part of it, and that is ultimately like what it could do, but they never talk about like, well, like, what if you don't have a tenant? What if your tenant doesn't pay? I think a huge example of that was the COVID pandemic, like where a lot of people were just not paying, and then it's like, what's cash flowing? That mortgage doesn't stop. You know what I mean? Like that furnace just went out. That's a $6,000 expense. Like, you need to repair the AC. The people don't care about your property as much as you do. And so, yeah, there's damages and repairs. And so I think you're speaking to a side of things that a lot of people don't really understand. And, you know, everybody just wants to jump to, I want to acquire real estate. I want to get real estate. But for you, even with those hiccups, it's been pretty profitable.
Yeah, it's been profitable. So I have enjoyed that. But again, you can make real estate profitable. I chose to pay down a lot of the debt on my first house. And once I had a tenant, I was cash flowing. But I did have to evict my first tenant ever. Right. Mm-hmm. So again, there's growing pains in it. And there's times where you think it's going to work. Like I checked his credit score. You can have people fill out like a Zillow app. It'll do a background check their credit score. His income was good and everything looked good. But then COVID hit, he was depressed, wouldn't respond to my text messages. Luckily, his dad was paying his rent for a little bit, you know, and I get it, life happens. But it was just a learning lesson for me too on like how to maybe look into things a little more, you know? But yeah, even though, and when he left out, I probably had like $1,200 in damages that he left after, you know, having to do some things. But again, it's part of the game, I guess.
Facts.
Yeah.
Hey, real quick, I just wanted to take some time to thank you for taking time out of your day to tune into this video. But also on the same note, I wanted to let you know that only 12% of you right now are actually subscribed to the channel. So like, I would truly be grateful if you just hit that subscribe button for me and continue to tune into this content that I'm producing. I also wanted to let you know that I got something big planned for y'all. If you're an entrepreneur, business owner, or somebody who's looking to make money online, then you don't want to miss out on this 5-day workshop that I'm putting on. It's called the Mindset to Money Challenge. During this workshop, I will be unveiling all of my secrets that help me go from no clients, no business, no nothing, to making over $850,000 in the last 3 years. And check this out, I'm not holding anything back. Everything that I use and know I will be giving to you during this, because the thing that I want to see happen is that you flourish in your business, that your entrepreneurship booms, and that whatever dollar that you're trying to touch, you're able to do that. So be sure to drop down in the description. I think we're gonna put the link somewhere down there. Drop down in that description, click that, and lock in your spot. ASA Mother Loving P. And also, I would encourage you, make sure you get a VIP ticket, because with that VIP ticket, you're gonna be able to access a Q&A that happens before the workshop happens, where you get direct contact with me. You can ask me anything. And I promise you, I'm an open book. I'm not holding anything back, because I wanna see you thrive. So again, make sure you lock in your spot to the Mindset to Money Challenge today. And I'll be sure to see you there. Now let's get back to the video. Peace. If you could give advice to somebody who's thinking about getting into real estate, what would that advice be? Like, what type of properties should they be looking at? Because a lot of people talk about single family, multifamily. What types of loans or what type of cash should they bring into like a deal, and so on and so forth?
Yeah. Yep. So I would recommend at least using a first-time home buyer's loan, depending on income, right? And what you have saved up. Ultimately, learn how to budget, learn how to pay off debt, learn how to save. And I like Dave Ramsey's approach on save 3 months for an emergency. If you're a 1099 independent contractor, he says 6 months. I totally agree with that. I'd almost even push that a little more. But just even to get started, our mutual friend Dan, I remember he was like, hey, I want to buy something that I could kind of fix up. And this was when rates were lower. And I was like, well, I think it'd be in your best interest to buy something a little nicer so you don't have to worry about fixing stuff up and just rent every room out right away. Well, we found him a property that had 3 bedrooms upstairs and a 4th downstairs. And then it had a living area behind the 4th bedroom in the basement. And he just made that another bedroom. So from the beginning, he was able to rent basically 4 rooms in that house and covered his mortgage payment. And that's what I would encourage you. Like, if you have some friends that you could rent out to and get your mortgage covered, you'd basically get your down payment back. And down payment for first-time home buyers is 3.5%. And you'd get that back within 12 months, 18 months, And I have another client, same thing, helped him buy his first-time home buyer's house. Instead of him actually having like a long-term tenant, he was Airbnb-ing some of the rooms. And he called me, he's like, dude, I love this, because when I don't want to have people over, click, I turn it off. And when I want people over, it helps me out financially, So there's different ways to do it, You can do the multifamily route. It's just one of those things to keep in mind. Like, you've got more expenses if things were to go out, it's doable, but you got to know what you're getting into.
That makes sense. That makes sense. All right, bro. I want to get a little bit in your pockets, man.
Okay.
I'm gonna get in your pockets, bro.
Okay.
You don't flex.
Okay.
Well, you flex in the gym, bro. He's in the gym every day, man. I'll be seeing it on the Instagram stories doing this thing. You try. Yeah. But no, man, you don't flex your pockets, but I know that you are super successful at what you do. And I think now with social media, like, people will see realtors, and like, realtors are able to like portray this certain lifestyle, whether it's true or not, and I think for a lot of them it is. And it shows like the capability and the ceiling, how high the ceiling is for like profit in the real estate game, even as a realtor. Mm-hmm. What does that look like for you, bro? Like, what are you able to like generate just from houses? Like, if you had to, boil it down to like monthly.
Like how much I sell on a given month?
How much you're able to profit?
That's a good question. So, I mean, right off the bat, like I generally have around, especially like with a house that's being listed from the get-go, like 1,000 to 1,500 on expenses, and that's including like if I'm not staging it, you know. So let's say $300,000 house that needs staged, you know, the photos, videos, everything that I do. Let's say I'm in it for $2,000 to $2,500. Profit could be anywhere between $5,000 to $6,000, you know?
Okay.
So
that's not bad.
Yeah, that's not bad. Just keep in mind too, the average agent in the United States does 7 to 12 deals a year, you know?
Oh, so it's,
I mean, it is a very competitive field,
yeah,
you know, because you could throw a rock and hit 3 realtors, you know?
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I think the ones that set themselves apart are the ones marketing themselves really well, educating, informing their clients really well, staying in front of their clients. So yeah.
Yeah. And you're doing well. You're not doing 7 to 12 deals a year, bro.
Doing a few. So,
yeah, oh man, yeah, you're doing your thing, man. But it wasn't always like that. Like you weren't always profiting at this level. Take us back, bro. Take us back. Like
yeah. So when I was doing property management, I was only selling 6 to 8 homes a year. But again, I paid off my student loans. I started saving and I was like, okay, well, I sold this amount part-time. If I go full-time, I should be able to make it. And that first year, I doubled my income from the year before, you know? So, but again, it was that discipline in saving my money, right? And knowing I've got rainy days ahead. So how am I positioning myself to go out and, you know, put 40-hour work weeks in this area that I'm passionate about. So that's honestly what really helped me, because as soon as I did that, I was spending more on marketing, right? Like understanding like, okay, I have to get myself out there so people know what I do, you know? So putting a budget in for marketing just even from the beginning was something that was helpful. So
as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, as somebody who like your cash is contingent upon your service. Can't stress enough how important marketing is. Like a lot of people don't write that into their, but they're like, oh, I don't need to market. Like I got friends, I got homies, people know about me. Yeah, that's cool. But that's only going to go so far. And especially like in a field like real estate, like the homies is not always buying house. They probably not buying a house at all, matter of fact. And so like, just that proponent of like, I need to spend money on marketing 100% is key.
Yes.
Like it's key, even in my field, bro. Like I realized that ahead of the pandemic, like I paid like $10,000 to learn marketing so that I could start like implementing those things, bro. And it was a game changer for me. It filled up my books because it's like, it's not a negotiable. You know, if you're a business in today's age, in any age, like, we run it back, bro. Like marketing used to be the radio. Marketing used to be television. Marketing used to be the billboards. Now it's like, no, marketing is social media. And I think that's where we see like, I like every so often when I'm just scrolling reels and I'm able to see like homes where it's like, and they're showing all the intricacies of it. And it's like, oh, this is dope. And then they have an added element of the person who's there. Like it draws you in. And so it's so important. It's so important. But when I say take you back, bro, I meant take us back to your childhood.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like, were y'all making bread? Like,
no. Yeah. So, so I grew up with a parent that wasn't as good with money and really saw that at a young age. And I don't want to be like I'm against gambling, but to a certain degree, like I think it's more harmful than good, you know?
Bro, we was just at the casino last night.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm just playing.
But just because I just see, again, it's just one of those habits that can kind of creep in and you slowly don't realize it. And again, if you don't have certain people in your life to call that out, you're just like, I'm fine. I don't, you know, and that's sometimes then your escape from reality, right? But so kind of growing up in a household where, yeah, we didn't have a lot of money, seeing those things. One, I am truly grateful. My mom did take me to El Salvador when I was younger, and my family down there, I'm like, when we're talking dirt poor, like my grandma had dirt floors, no running water, no electricity was off of a car battery, right? So my grandma,
off a car battery.
So like at night when you want, you go into a certain room, you got to make sure the car battery's charged. And she lived out in like the country, so when the car battery is dying, you have to bring it into town and recharge it and take it back up. That's down there. Like my aunts and my cousins would have water jugs on their head to bring up like clean water and stuff like that. So seeing that at a young age, I just remember like without my parents having to tell me like how thankful and grateful I am of that I have all these opportunities. It wasn't obviously till I was a little older that I actually like leveled up and understood like, dude, I need to do something with my life, growing up, it made me thankful for just even what my parents provided me. I wasn't ever like, oh man, I wish they would have given me more. I'm just like, man, they gave me everything that they had. But just seeing, just the lack of, again, resources, education. I was super fortunate when I took that Dave Ramsey class that somebody paid for that for me. $100 class that changed my life, So yeah, that's kind of my upbringing and not having a lot of it. So there's times, if I'm being honest, like I feel guilty for spending it too, because I'm like, oh man, like I don't know, it's like I shouldn't, like I should almost feel bad for it, but that's kind of been something that I struggle with is like enjoying it, I guess, because I've got a lot of family that doesn't have it and hasn't been able to enjoy it, or maybe they enjoy it too much. That's why I don't have any. So
was it always like that for you though, in your mind, where it's like, I want to be the opposite of this? Or was it through just like maturation and you being in certain situations and circumstances where things started to click?
I mean, in high school, even I was a 3-sport athlete, and I had a paper out in the morning. That's why I've always been a morning person. I'd still get up at the butt crack of dawn in the cold and deliver newspapers. And then I worked at a Chinese restaurant. So the working was always fine. It was just like, I always knew like I need to do this so I don't position myself where my family's at. And I need to save. That was the biggest difference. And honestly, families don't really ever talk about finances. I don't know if your parents ever shared with you where they were at financially, but I could see the burden it was, So I don't know. I think just from seeing it and living it, I was just like, I never want to be there. So I know I need to live below my means, And so, yeah.
I feel that. I feel that. What were like big, what was a big childhood event for you that that really sticks out to you, that kind of set you on that trajectory of like where you're at now, where it's like, I know I need to do different? I know you mentioned just like going down to El Salvador and seeing that, but even just like in your day to day where you were at, like what's like a core memory for you?
I would say middle school, in the sense of like I kind of remember hanging around like the preppy kids. And I would say that's kind of what maybe sparked my interest even at that age of real estate. Cause I just remember going to their houses and be like, dude, my house does not look like this, So that's where I just remember almost playing that comparison game. Like, dang, like I want my kids to kind of have this life, like nice neighborhood, nice house, and I just remember being like, man, I will have to live differently if I want this kind of life, So I remember I just being jealous of certain kids that I'm just like, man, they've got something that I don't have. What do I need to do to get there, And for me, I guess I always saw those as being successful businessmen, salesmen, stuff like that, lawyers, doctors. So yeah, I think that competitiveness in me was like, man, I need to do something like that. Or change something to get to that point. So,
and you're doing it now.
Wasn't sure for a while, but yeah, doing it now. So yeah, but
no, I feel that. I wanna pivot a little bit to something that you mentioned just a little bit ago. Just seeing family members not managing money well. And you mentioned somebody was gambling, like you saw like a lot of gambling and a lot of just kind of almost like throwing away of money. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. It was mainly casinos, but it was just a constant habit that led to like bankruptcy, and seeing that in family is tough. Again, if you put that burden on everybody, without telling it, or saying it. So yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things that an addict doesn't realize it's an issue until it blows up in their face,
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think they've still learned their lesson.
I was gonna say, I think even on a certain level, bro, just like, and I think Black culture, Latin culture, some of these habits, bro, like we integrate them as culture, even like gambling, like, bro, like it's almost integrated into culture. And there's so many other things integrated into culture that almost like hinder us from being able to progress in certain areas and certain aspects of life. I know I had a guest on not too long ago. Her name was Alejandra, and she was just talking about how like food in Mexican culture, because she's Mexican, doesn't promote health, and so it like led to just like serious health issues with herself, where she was almost like diabetic. And so like a lot of these things that like we grow up being taught are normal actually work against us. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like that gambling aspect could have worked against you. Fortunately, like you were exposed to, fortunately, and maybe on a certain level, unfortunately too, because it placed the insecurity within you. But it also propelled you to make decisions in your life and make
Correct.
choices in your life that led you down a different path.
100%, yeah.
Can you talk about just like that experience for you as you started to mature and progress, and just seeing like maybe like different aspects of your culture that potentially could have taken you away from where you are now?
Yeah. I'm trying to think. So yeah, like I feel like most people, I guess in my family, yeah, it was more so the gambling with the casinos was, I mean, obviously it's not like I was old enough to go to the casinos, but just being around it made me realize it wasn't a habit that I wanted to have for my future family. So wanted nothing to be a part of it. And as far as like culture, I mean, they played dominoes a lot, so like, and I remember just even them getting like hostile just on like how much they'd lose off of a game like that. And I just remember being like, man, like this isn't a good habit to get into. So I don't know. I mean, I'll be honest, like from the beginning, it's always been off-putting to me. But like I said, that's why I have that like insecurity or that struggle of like enjoying money, because like I saw people lose it and then spend too much of it and it becomes a burden that I struggle with, like, okay, I can't enjoy this, So it was honestly kind of easy for me just because I saw such a bad example that I'm like, I'm just not doing that,
Yeah, that makes sense. So. That makes sense. I know in Latin culture, that the concept of machismo is something that's pretty big.
Yeah.
Is that something that played a role?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like in my parents, like, like mom doesn't have as much of a say in some things, or just was belittled in certain areas, and again, I feel like I learned from those failures, where like my wife and I are super honest and open about finances. If I'm being honest with you, she pays all, like she does everything. Like I work, She pays all the bills. If you told me to like log into the bank account, I'd be like,
he said, what's that?
Nobody's getting money, right? So, and I'm super fortunate for that because I trust her. We have that open communication, and I don't have to worry about her. She doesn't have to worry about me. You know, we kind of stick to your own lane, and it works out, right? Like, so yeah, I mean, growing up with that mindset is difficult because again, you're saying, hey, I'm leading this ship. I'm not willing to be super transparent or be open to hear your thoughts and opinions on stuff. And, you know, I take the stress on of the investment property that I brought on. But originally when I went through it, my wife's like, yeah, let's do it. And, you know, she was for it. And obviously I'm not holding anything against her, but it was just like, I felt good at that time. Like, okay, she feels good about it. Now I'm going to sell it. And she's like, yeah, I understand why you want to sell it, you know? And she's been super encouraging and affirming and selling it just because she's like, hey, it was a learning lesson for all of us. And I was like, dang, it's so awesome that she could easily be like, well, this is your fault. You know, like we spent how much, because she's the one that looks at the books, like how much we've spent in it, you know? But fortunately, and I'm super blessed to not have that spouse. So again, just that open communication. But again, just learning from the failures of my parents, unfortunately, has helped me in my marriage and in my finances. So.
Definitely. How did that dynamic? I'm gonna ask this, and then caveat to just like a little explanation too. How did that dynamic impact the relationship between you and your dad growing up? And could you also explain for people who might not have an understanding of what machismo is, just kind of let them know like what that whole concept is?
Yeah. So machismo is like basically very gosh, I'm trying to think of the English term. Non-feminist. Would that be like misogynistic? Yes. So in certain cultures, a lot of cultures around the world, there's not a lot of say for women in the marriage and in the household. And it is kind of like that in our culture too. So growing up and seeing my dad, again, talk to my mom a certain way, belittle her in certain aspects, you know, it challenged me on a lot of things. I'll never forget, my mom helped me one day with my newspaper route, and I like raised my voice at her, and she's like, hey, I don't want you to do that because it reminds me of, you know, your dad. So that was tough. And I remember, I mean, that was like when I was 15, 16 years old. So I always remember saying like, I will never yell at my wife. Again, failure, learn from it. I'm not going to do it, you know? So, yeah, just starting to realize how much of their past and their failures has honestly helped me understand that I need to be better and that I can do better in my marriage. You know, you don't have to replay the same thing.
Yeah.
So,
how did that affect you and your father's relationship and your dynamic?
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't really want to be home when I was in high school. You know, like I chose to wake up early, go to school, be in sports, work another restaurant. Transitioning to college was one of the easiest things for me because I never wanted to be home. You know, now, thankfully, fortunately, like I became a Christian in college, like just understanding my dad more, right? Like he didn't have what I've had in life, right? And we're in a way better spot than we were back then. But yeah, at the same time, I was a young, dumb teenager, you know, not as understanding, you know, a lot of emotions towards my dad. Now that I've gotten older, it's been better in communicating with him. I'm not going to say it's great, but it's been easier for me to be like, okay, I understand why he's this way because he didn't have certain people to talk to, people to challenge his thought process, right? And God, for the longest time, to, you know, remind him of like just love, you know, and grace.
100%. So it sounds like the transition for you and how you kind of saw things like with your dad, the dynamic, all of that, it really changed once you tapped into your faith.
Yeah, 100%.
How did you get introduced to Christianity?
Yeah, so I introduced to it at a young age. My mom was the Christian in the household, so grew up going to a lot of Spanish-speaking Pentecostal churches in and around Fremont. So got introduced to it. It was a little different for me seeing people so emotional about their faith, just acting certain ways in church. But then it wasn't until the 4th grade that I found God intriguing for myself. Like I got picked up to go to Vacation Bible School. And I just remember, that's when I felt like I originally heard the gospel, but I just remember feeling like, okay, like there has to be something better, because I remember when I was little, I'd close my eyes and try not to think. And I'm like, man, if this is what I have to look forward to for the rest of eternity, like this sucks, But so I always found God intriguing, but it wasn't, middle school, high school, living my own life, and honestly, I felt like the bar was set so high. I went to a pretty legalistic church where it was dress like this, talk like this, Wednesday, Sunday morning, Sunday evening, but no real hey, how are you doing? One, do you even have a relationship with Jesus? But 2, how is your fellowship with Jesus? How is your fellowship with God, right? We're here to nurture and build relationships on earth, but we don't talk about hey, how are you nurturing and building your relationship with God, right? And there was no talking about struggles in life or anything like that. It was all just talk like this, go up to church. I felt like it was an attendance record. And then when I was 16, I grew out my hair down to my shoulders and they thought I was gone, So I just remember feeling man, if the bar's set so high, I don't want nothing to do with it. But it wasn't until I was at college, man, at Wayne, that I was just I just remember partying a lot. And I just felt like God was just working in my heart and just being Johnny, if you were to die right now, where would you go? And I was like, dang. I didn't like thinking about it, so I actually drank more to black out. And I just remember praying to God. I was in a bad spot, school. I was on academic probation. I was about to get kicked out of school. Just life in general wasn't the greatest. And I just remember being all right, God, I know what it looks like to trust you, but I wave that flag, but my life doesn't represent that at all. So that's when I would say I truly said, all right, I'm surrendering this to you. And that next day I met Nelson Leecraft, and I knew Nelson before he was a Christian. So it was just super cool to just meet up with a guy that, became a believer as well. And then got plugged into the community at Wayne. And that was a huge blessing, something that I know I won't ever experience that kind of community till we're in heaven kind of thing, just because of the lack of commitments that we have now as adults. But yeah, man, I would say it stemmed from there. And I'm just, again, super thankful and blessed on, I feel how God's positioned me now. And just, again, the relationships with my parents have gotten so much better through it too, but it's just that helped me understand more, So,
For sure.
Yo, real quick. I almost forgot. As a licensed therapist, I'm big on mental health and I'm big on making sure that you're taking care of you. And I also want to get rid of this stigma that we got towards mental health. There's nothing wrong with talking to a therapist. So if you're somebody that's out there that really wants to start getting their mind right, who wants to really start understanding their emotions and being able to process things that you probably repressed, that you probably ain't talked about, that you might have been even ashamed about talking about. Or check this out. You might not be ashamed about it and you just ain't found a person for you to talk to. You want to find somebody that's relatable, that can understand you. You got a little swag, you know what I'm saying? A little swag. And they not too far removed. Make sure that you tap in with Bear Company Counseling. All you got to do is hop down in the description, click the link, put in your info, and the front desk rep will reach out to you and get you plugged in with a therapist that I promise you, as long as you're ready, will help you to get whatever you need right up here so that you can succeed in every other avenue and aspect of your life. Tap in with a therapist today at Bear Company Counseling. Now you can get back to the video for real. I promise I won't hop back in again.
the journey from living one way to living another way is one that a lot of us are trying to figure out, like, you know, the equation, like we're trying to figure the equation of being right here, ending up right here. You know what I'm saying? And you just explained, like, you were living your life one way, you were partying, you were doing all these different things. And then, like, you had a certain mindset, like you were running, and then it changed. Like you started living for Christ. And I think a skill inside of there that a lot of people fail to acknowledge or fail to put into play is just like the changing of your environments, the changing of the people that you have around you. Can you speak on like how that helped you in your own personal transformation?
Yeah. My roommate, Steven Lindbergh, man, that dude discipled me without discipling me. Just seeing his life, like small town kid from Strasbourg. But I was fortunate enough to, fortunate and unfortunate enough to room with him. We called him Dirty Lindbergh because he was dirty. But just seeing a guy that like took it serious, like would wake up, pray, read his Bible, would love on others, invite them to Bible studies. You know, when people would come up with an excuse like, dude, you can push that off, you know, like this is important, you know? And I just remember always seeing that from afar, like, man, this dude is choosing to love God, choosing to invest in others, you know, choosing to sacrifice his time to love on other people. And yeah, that was, and just being around a group of people like that, it changes. So when I left Wayne and going from that kind of camaraderie to like real world, I mean, it's tough, man. It's tough to transition from that much like fellowship and being able to hang out with people. But I think seeing those things, experiencing those things have helped me realize like I can't just make that excuse that I can't continue to have those kinds of relationships. It's just going to take effort on my side, you know, because sometimes I feel like we're just like, well, I'm going to wait for that person to initiate, right? But it's like, no, it's got to be both sided, you know, with any relationship, you know. So yeah,
definitely. What are some of the biggest things that you've noticed since, since kind of transforming your life, changing your life, giving your life to Christ? What are some of the biggest things that you've noticed with yourself as far as just like your own potential?
Dude, this is a good one. And I'm glad you asked this. Honestly, like believing and trusting in your God-given abilities. Like I feel like so many times, like I even put myself in a box all the time. I hired a coach last year and she says this to me all the time because I do lack confidence in myself. And she's like, Johnny, borrow confidence from me in my abilities, you know? And I think that a lot of us struggle with that. And it wasn't until I became a Christian that I actually even set goals in life, you know, that I was like, man, I'm going to do this. And without it making it sound like, oh, you can get anything and achieve everything. But it helped me realize like, okay, if you put goals, realistic goals, and then you break those things down on how you'll get there, like it will be a blessing. Like God wants you to do better and get better, you know? And so I would say that that's what's really helped me in understanding like, man, like I'm fortunate to be where I'm at, the timing where I'm at, the potential, like, so I don't want to waste what God's given me, you know? And so, you know, he makes the sun go up. I got to work and do what I can during that time, you know? So, yeah.
I feel that. Couple more things, because we're getting close on time, bro. If you could go back and you could tell younger you some game, right, that could set your trajectory like off 10 times as quick, what would that game be?
One, obviously, yeah, start walking with the Lord sooner, you know, just to avoid some of the things. But it's tough because obviously, we grow from some of those things. But that and going back to even being better on my finances a little sooner, you know, because there were some things that I just remember I'm like, man, I shouldn't have bought that, you know. So I would say those two things, like understanding where you're at with God first, and then looking at your finances and relationships with certain friends. You talked about that a little bit. And that's been a big thing for me now in adulthood, you know, who I want to associate myself with, and just seeing the patterns in people and acknowledging those things. Like, we can hope people change, but if it's a pattern, you know, like just being wise in those areas too, you know, so just being smarter about the friends that you hang around.
Facts. Give us a crash course, bro. Pivoting again. Give us a crash course on things that we need in line to buy a house. Because I know there's people out there. There's so many people out here that want to buy a house, and then they go to fill out the pre-approval, and it's like, nah, motherfucker, you're not getting a house.
Yes. Man, if again, I'm gonna go back to and default. Like, I would challenge people to look up Dave Ramsey. You know, because what's the point of you barely qualify? Because they're gonna qualify you for more than what you can afford, right? And that's the other thing most people don't talk about. They're going to qualify you for more than what you can afford, and you're going to get excited, right? Because if you go and look at a house at your max pre-approval, and then you're like, okay, maybe I shouldn't spend that much a month, and then you go look at something else, you're going to be like, man, you know? So sometimes people force themselves because they got too excited, right? So look at your budget. One, know what your budget is, right? Because banks will give up to 45 to 50% of your income for a mortgage, and it's like that can be that's a lot for some people. So Dave Ramsey's approach is 25%. Some people say 30. I think if you're in that realm of 25-30% of your take-home income goes to your mortgage, you're in a good spot, because again, most people are at 45-50. There's that one quarter that you could be saving up for, again, saving for a rainy day. So understanding your budget, paying off debt, and then also, even while you're, if you're not wanting to wait until you pay off all your debt, then I would recommend, you know, start saving up a little bit of the percentage that you take home. But one thing that people don't know about is you can get like government assistance, right? Like if you qualify, if your income qualifies, if you're a first-time home buyer, the season that you buy, like right now, there's $15,000 worth of grant money available for first-time home buyers, right? And that's sometimes needed because, you know, depending on the house, you might be in a multiple offer situation. The other thing that people don't talk about too, I like buying like my personal houses like in the late fall, winter time, because nobody's moving. You will find your best deal if you can line it up with your lease, if you can line it up with your landlord. Buy in the winter. If you could get a house that's 5% cheaper and you get your closing costs paid for, you know, because typically with a first-time home buyer at $300,000, I'm telling you, hey, 3% for your down payment, 3% for your closing costs. Let's say that's between $16,000 to $18,000, right? So if I could say, hey, how about you get into this house with your first-time home buyer's grant that covers your closing costs, and I could get the seller to cover your closing costs. I just had a guy that closed on his first house and got a check back at closing.
Oh, nice.
You know,
nice.
So it's doable, right? So it's just getting connected, getting educated on it. Again, understanding your finances on what you can and can't afford, and living below your means, and it's doable. So
break down a budget. What should my budget look like?
Again, I would say if you're looking at your take home,
I make, oh, here we go. I got you. I'm gonna set some parameters for you. Between me and my wife, we make 60,000. We make 80,000.
I was gonna say, you need a new job.
Yeah.
Your wife's about to leave you. So, you know, I don't
want no broke boy.
You're bagging groceries. Shoot. No.
We make 80,000 together. What should my budget look like? And like, what is the price range of a house that I probably can afford?
Yeah. Again, it would depend on debt
we're gonna get there. Let's just we're gonna ixnay debt.
I mean, if you're making 80 grand a year, I mean, yeah, you should be able to afford anything between 300, 350, you know, which is now like your old school starter house, right? Like I said, I bought mine. So that's your typical, like somewhat like 1970 to early 2000s split level right? Like just throwing it out there for the typical what people are seeing, right? So 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, 2-car garage can be in that range, 15 to 1,800 square feet, depending on condition and stuff like that. So that's what you'd have to look forward to. Again, payment, not payments, but what you would have to come to closing with, let's just say 325, let's meet in the middle. Let's just do it by 6%. That's 19,500, So that's where I tell people, like, you need that budget to start saving, right? Because that's your down payment and closing costs. You still need to have money for a rainy day as soon as you move in, So that's where that 3-6 months of expenses is important to have, even when you're buying a house, And if you don't have that money, acknowledging like you can get a house, but it may take some time and it might not be the condition that you want if you're needing the seller to pay some of your closing costs, So
now let's talk about debt. The moment you hit 18, credit card companies are mailing you out these, you've been approved, credit card. How do I go about managing that and like getting that in order so that I can qualify for these mortgage loans?
Yeah. So, obviously I recommend, once you are renting out a place, making sure you have like your phone under your name, your utilities under your name, because even those little things will help. Because I took the Dave Ramsey thing so early on in life, I was always opposed to credit card debt. At the Chinese restaurant, my boss was like, Johnny, if you have no money, do not buy it, So he even kind of encouraged me on it. So I was never a big fan of it. But I would say if you're going to do it, like write down a limit, like, hey, we're all on the same page, or I'm on the page of like, if I'm going to spend $500 on this month, I'm paying it off, because again, it's one of those things that it could be a slippery slope for a lot of people, because you're like, oh man, because
free money,
18% interest, it's going to add up quick and you're going to feel that burden. So you got to discipline yourself and write it out. Like, hey, I'm only willing to spend this much out. I highly recommend people write out how much they're making, what all their expenses, their subscriptions, all that stuff. Because that if you don't pay it off, it is a monthly subscription that just keeps going up, right? So that would be my challenge with people with trying to build their credit. There are some ways that you can do it without, getting a credit card right away. I get some people want to do it through credit cards, but if you are going to do it, make sure you just cap it and you pay it off,
I grew up with a very unhealthy relationship with credit. Like, love you, Mom. I love you, Mom. But my mom, and I mean, she was doing it by herself for majority of the time. And so like she utilized a lot of credit. But it was like, if I got credit, I'm going to spend it and I'm going to pay it. And then I noticed myself getting stuck in these loops and cycles of having to constantly like give everything that I made to a debt that I was paying off. And even when I paid the $500-$600, like only 300 of it went to the actual principal. The rest was interest. And so it was like, thanks, we'll see you 600 again next month. But for me, it was learning, like you said, like setting that limit for myself. Now it's like, I only use credit cards for these specific things, like budget in my gas, I'm gonna budget in my groceries, and this credit card is only going to be used for gas and groceries because I know I have this money in my account each month that I'll automatically transfer. And I think one of the benefits of a credit card, like if you're able to do it right, is if you have credit cards that have like these perks, like flight miles, vacation, like you can rack up some good points with that, and that's free money, but it's only if you know how to use it responsibly. 100%. Only if you know how to use it responsibly. That's just something that I've noticed for myself. I don't know if it's similar for you as well.
Yeah. Well, for me now, because I pay things off at the end of the month. Now I'm trying to find like what's a good credit card to start getting points, because I've been using my debit card so long, and I'm like, man, I'm missing out on some of this stuff. So it's hard to transition that mentally. Like, okay, it's okay because I'm doing this, Yeah. So, but either way, I think once you acquire a house, like it's not as important you know, like once you get your house, like you'll be fine. You know, I think sometimes people are like, oh, I need to keep doing this, like to maintain or elevate my credit. It's like, no, you got the house, just save away, investing is huge too, you know, like learning how to invest, you know, talk to a financial advisor, look at your 401ks, look at your Roth. As entrepreneurs, we have to, you know, 1099, we have to look at what Roths look like for us. And I think it's good to diversify too. You know, you can't just always have all your eggs in one basket unless, and I get it. Like, I mean, I'm more passionate about real estate. That's kind of my thing. I still give my financial advisor Roth money, but I think I enjoy diversifying.
Definitely.
So
one last thing. I'm somebody, I've bought my first house. Like I did it all right. My credit is good. And I want to like buy more properties. And I heard of this thing called a HELOC. Mm-hmm. What is a HELOC and how can that help me to acquire another property?
Yeah. So a HELOC is a home equity line of credit. So let's say you have a $200,000 house and your mortgage, so your balance is $100,000. A HELOC will let you get to typically 80%, right? So you could take $60,000 and use that for a down payment on another house, and you take that out tax free too, right? So you can use that to you know, have that be your down payment and closing costs on the next house, you know? So again, you got to acknowledge you'll have your mortgage and you'll have a interest only payment on the HELOC. You know, if you're able to cover those debts, I mean, it's not a bad way to do it. That's kind of how I bought my duplex. Is I used a HELOC, used some of those funds to purchase that, you know? So it helped out at that time when rates were super low. You know, now my HELOC rate is at 8 or 9. Ooh. You know, so that's what I mean. Again, you have to look at some of those different areas where I would almost argue. So I ran through this last winter with a client, and he was like, hey, I want to use my HELOC, got a lot of equity. And I was like, well, hey, if you look at what your mortgage is and what your payments are, it would actually be cheaper for you to rent your house out and you only put 5% down on your next one instead of putting 20% down on an investment property, because on investment properties, they're usually a point higher in interest rate. So I just ran the numbers with him. I'm like, he could have bought his exact same house today at market value, putting 20% down, and it wouldn't have cash flowed. But because he bought it a while ago with his first time home buyers, had equity, rate was lower, he could rent it out and cash flow. I think it was like $400. Nice. So I told him it's in your best interest. Instead of using that money, use that money, you get to upgrade and just rent out your house. You already know it's going to cash flow instead of you buying something and you're going to be in the red. So, yeah.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Bro, we're coming up to time.
Yeah.
What's one thing you would leave the people with from just anything that we talked about today? Maybe something we didn't talk about, or just something that's on your heart.
Yeah. I mean, just because I see it time and time again with homes and stuff, like the biggest burden is finances. Look up Dave Ramsey, look up anybody that can help you out with finances, because I feel like that's the biggest burden for most people, most households. You know, again, it's something that we weren't ever really educated on. We don't really talk about it with a lot of people. And that would be my heart. Like, man, just know that, so that way it's not a burden to you. It's not a burden to your family.
He said, look up all these people, but something in me is telling me 2025, we're going to have a Johnny's Financial Cash Challenge program out there.
Yeah.
That we're going to be looking you up to learn like what we need to do to get our finances right. And then we can tap in with you for our real estate when we're ready to buy our house.
100%.
And then you're going to be closing 10x of the 6 to 12 properties a year.
Hoping to. So, yeah, man. So
this was good, bro.
Yeah,
this was good.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you coming on. Y'all, I appreciate y'all too for tuning into another episode of the CYR Podcast, where we bring dope people on who clean their rooms. We out.
That was good, dude. That was fun, man.